But there's one detail, all right? One detail that no one mentions, and it is the type of sunscreen used. In that second study, they were using an SPF 30 chemical sunscreen. In this study, as you can see here, they were using an SPF 60, all right, 60 tinted sunscreen with a PA rating of 4 pluses. The most likely sunscreen that was used was Episol, because it's a very popular tinted sunscreen in Brazil. This features filters such as Tinosorb M and Tinosorb S. So let that sink in, all right? The group that got the hydroquinone results were all applying an SPF 60 PA4+ tinted sunscreen that featured novel sunscreen filters like Tinosorb S. This is a very, very, very important detail in this study that I don't see anyone talking about. In this video, I'm going to go through 3 clinical studies on Thiamidol. We're going to analyze them in depth and see what you can do to really get the best out of your Thiamidol serum. Thiamidol is really unique because it was engineered specifically to target human tyrosinase specifically. A lot of other pigment products were made using like mushroom tyrosinase, but Thiamidol was engineered to be very, very specific and very, very targeted, which is where a lot of these great results are coming from. The first study and the most recent was from 2026, and it was a double-blinded, vehicle-controlled clinical trial. Had 196 participants over 24 weeks, and as you can see from these before and afters, it was pretty phenomenal. They looked at freckles, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, solar lentigos, as well as melasma. And something worth noting about it, about 16% of the male participants didn't notice any improvement whatsoever. So it kind of just goes to show, what works for somebody isn't going to work for everyone. Now, the big question is, that's not just does it work, it's also how long do the results last? And if you stop using the product, are you going to get that pigmentation coming back? This next study that was done in 2021, they measured that using regression, not linear regression, but regression in the sense of regression on the illness or the symptomology that's being presented. And they noticed that there was regression when subjects stopped using the Thiamidol. While pigmentation really improved drastically in this study as well, whenever the subjects stopped using the Thiamidol, a lot of them had that pigmentation come back, and that's what they referred to as regression. They did note that there was issues with the study due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as you can see in this quote here, and they do emphasize that further studies are needed. And in this skincare routine that they were using, it was the full Eucerin skincare routine. So they had the Thiamidol serum, they had an SPF 30 moisturizer, exclusively Eucerin products. They basically showed that the effects of the Thiamidol are reversible. However, they're not permanent, and also the regression didn't go all the way back to baseline. So it didn't go all the way back to how severe the hyperpigmentation was initially when they first started using the serum. Now, this is where things get interesting, where things get spicy. So this third study, the big point of this video is where they compared Thiamidol directly to hydroquinone. This is a study done in Brazil, and the results were shockingly comparable, if not the same. So this is one of the strongest points of Thiamidol, and I think this study is the reason it's gained so much traction, is because they had one group using hydroquinone and one group using the Thiamidol regimen, and they had the exact same results, which is insane. Here you can see a chart from the study looking at the hydroquinone versus Thiamidol groups. And you can see they're shockingly similar charts. Here's some pictures of the subjects that were in the study, and you can see noticeable improvement. But there's one detail, all right? One detail that no one mentions, and it is the type of sunscreen used. In that second study, they were using an SPF 30 chemical sunscreen. In this study, as you can see here, they were using an SPF 60, all right, 60 tinted sunscreen with a PA rating of 4 pluses. The most likely sunscreen that was used was Episol, because it's a very popular tinted sunscreen in Brazil. This features filters such as Tinosorb M and Tinosorb S. So let that sink in, all right? The group that got the hydroquinone results were all applying an SPF 60 PA4+ tinted sunscreen that featured novel sunscreen filters like Tinosorb S. This is a very, very, very important detail in this study that I don't see anyone talking about. So this wasn't just your average run-of-the-mill SPF 30 moisturizer sunscreen. This was targeted UVA to UVA1 and HEV blue light targeted pigment protection. Pigment-specific photo protection. So as someone who adores sunscreen and is obsessed with sunscreen, I love sunscreen formulations and studying how sunscreens are made and manufactured. Videos are incoming. This level of protection that you do not find in like 90% of American sunscreens, my hypothesis is that this is why the Thiamidol group got such good results. Because, stopping the pigmentation is only half the battle. You also have to stop the triggers, stop what's triggering the pigmentation. And overwhelmingly, ultraviolet light and blue light, especially the UV and HEV that we get when we're outdoors, is what's really, really triggering that response in the skin. Where you don't have good sun protection, you're fighting an uphill battle, right? I'm using all these creams, all these actives, but if I just have on some SPF 30 from CeraVe, when I have all these other types of sunscreens that are so much more advanced than an arsenal that I can pick, it's better to go with the more advanced sunscreens. They're gonna make the results a lot easier to get. This is what was done to get the hydroquinone results, was to use a phenomenal high-tech sunscreen. So what can we take away from this? Well, we can take away that Thiamidol is now one of the strongest pigment-fighting cosmetics on the market. However, it doesn't work its best alone and in isolation. I hope you all found this helpful. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me today talking about nerdy skincare stuff. I love this stuff. It's really fun. It's really interesting. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you used Thiamidol? Have you used other pigment products that you've enjoyed using? And also, what are your favorite tinted sunscreens? Every tinted sunscreen I have makes me look like an Oompa Loompa. It turns me orange. There's only a couple that I actually enjoy, but let me know what your favorite tinted sunscreens are. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts. And if you've used Thiamidol, you've had good results, you haven't had good results, let us know. Talk about it in the comments. Give me a like, subscribe if you feel like doing that. And I hope y'all have a good rest of the day wherever you are in the world. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.